All right, in this video, we're going to be reviewing areas of circles and then pieces of circles. So this is lesson 11-3, and it is a bit of a review, especially for this first video, because you have already learned how to find the area of a circle. We've talked about it a lot, actually. So area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. So the biggest thing that kids miss in this lesson is when you're given a circle and they give you the diameter, right? Don't forget that the radius is half the diameter. The diameter is stretching from one side of the circle through the center across to the other side. The radius is just from the center out, right? So up here, this is the radius. Two of those would be the diameter, but just one is the radius. So pay attention to that in this lesson. We have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 problems we're gonna do in this video lesson. All right, so for number 1, we are finding the area of each circle and rounding to the nearest tenth, which is the first space after the decimal. All right, so here, area equals pi times the radius squared. Here, the radius is 5 inches. So pi times 5 squared. Okay, and then order of operations says that we have to first simplify anything with an exponent. The exponent only applies to what's right in front of it. So it does not apply over here, only to the number in front of it, okay? So this is gonna be pi times 5 squared is 25. And then now we've got pi times 25. Some people abbreviate pi into 3.14. Since I have a calculator that has a pi button on it right here, if I hit that button, it actually gives me more of pi than just 3.14. It's a little more accurate. So I'm going to use that button. I'm not going to round. So I'm going to use 25 times pi, or pi times 25. 25 times, I hit the pi button, and then I have to hit equals after. All right, so I get 78.53, blah, 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 and it says to round to the nearest tenth, so this 3 keeps this at a 5. 78.5, and it is in inches. So this is about, it's not exact, when we're rounding, we do the little squiggle equal sign, about 78.5 inches, and it's the area, so it's two-dimensional, so we put a little 2 back here. It's always in square measurements, not just flat measurements, okay? Next one, what do you notice here? This is not the radius. This is all the way across, which is the diameter. So if the diameter is 20, the radius is half of that. So here, the radius equals 10 meters. So we're gonna have area equals pi times the radius squared. So pi times 10 squared is 100. And then if we multiply pi times 100, we know it's going to be 314, but then there's more to it, times the pi button equals 314.15. We have to round to the nearest tenth. So we look at the number next to it. It's a 5, so it does round this up to a 2. 314.2. So it's about 314.2, and it's in meters. And it's the area, so it's in square meters. Okay, next one. Here we have the radius. It's just halfway out from the center out, and it's 9.5 inches. So radius equals 9.5 inches. Area equals pi times the radius squared. So then I want to square the radius. 9.5 squared is 90.25. Pi times 90.25, and then I multiply 90.25 times pi equals 283.52. This 2 is what tells us if we round the 5 up to 6 or if it stays at a 5, and it's just a 2, so we're going to keep it at a 5. 283.5. So area is about 283.5 inches, and they're squared. 283, yep. Oh, allergies. I'm gonna sneeze. All right, number 5. Here, what do we notice? It gives us the diameter, not the radius. So if the diameter is 11, the radius is half of that. So half of 11 is 5.5, 5.5, and it's in feet. So area equals pi times the radius squared. So then I'm gonna, oh, I didn't realize I was that far over, sorry. Then I'm gonna square 5.5. 5.5 squared is 30.25. So pi times 30.25. And then I multiply those together. So I'm gonna hit times pi equals 95.03. This 3 is not gonna round the 0 up to a 1. So we're just gonna round it to 95. So it's gonna be about, it's not quite 95, but it's about 95 square feet. Don't forget to put the units of measure. Don't just put 95. And don't forget to put that they're square units, not just straight units. There's a difference between this or this, right? This is just a foot. This would be a square foot. So we're talking about these, not these. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, next one, same thing. We still get the diameter here. The diameter is 88 meters, which means the radius is half of that. So the radius is 44 meters. So the area equals pi times the radius squared. Now 44 times 44 is going to be a big number, right? 44 squared, 1936. So pi times 1936, and then we'll go ahead and multiply that. I just left it in my calculator, so I hit times the pi button equals 6,082.1, and then the number next to 1 is a 2, so we're not going to round that 1 up. So it's going to be 6082.1. So it's about 6082.1. That's in meters, and they're squared because it's area. Last one of these first 6. Now it does give us the radius, right? Just from the center out. Always got to pay attention to that. So the radius equals 11, and that's in inches. So area equals pi times the radius squared. 11 squared is 121. And 121 times pi, I can't do it in my head. 121 times the pi button equals 380.13. That 3 does not round that 1 up, so it's 380.1. About 380.1, and that's in inches, and there's square inches because it's area, 2-dimensional. Okay, hopefully that's making sense to you guys. Back up a little bit. It's a lot of work. Make sure you're showing all of your work. Now we're going to do these last 4 just because we have time. All right, so we have to read the directions carefully. So the one thing I want to look for is diameter or radius. So for this first one, it says find the diameter. For the second one, it gives us the diameter, or it tells us to find the diameter. Number 9, find the radius. And number 10, find the radius. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention to that for each problem. Let me back up just a little bit. All right, so for number 7, I'm going to write sideways. It's not going to make a lot of sense, but hopefully you can follow me along. It gives us the area. Area is 153.9 square centimeters. Find the diameter. So we know area equals pi times the radius squared. So total area, 153.9 equals pi r squared. Now, what would be the first thing I can do here? I'm trying to get r by itself. I can't get rid of the squared yet, but what can I get rid of? Pi. I can divide both sides of my equation by pi, and this guy will cancel. So I want to divide 153.9 by pi. 153.9 divided by the pi button equals this guy. So I'm going to put, instead of 4, 8, 9, 8, 7, 8, 9, blah, 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 that whole long thing, I'm going to go ahead and round it up to the nearest 10th, which this 8's going to round this 9, which is going to round this guy. So it's actually going to be 49 is what it's closest to. So I'm going to put 49 equals, I'll put a little arrow there. And then this just got canceled out when I divided, so it's just r squared, right? So then we take the square root of both sides. The square root of 49 is positive or negative 7. But since we're talking about length measurement, the radius, we can't have a negative measurement. So we're only going to use positive 7. So the radius equals 7. And, oh, sorry, didn't tell us to find the radius. It tells us to find the diameter. So if the radius is 7, that's why we highlighted it. Pay attention. I almost forgot it. If the radius is 7, multiply it by 2, and the diameter is going to be 14. So this is our answer. Diameter is 14. Yes, you're right, the radius is 7, but it asked us to find the diameter, so don't forget to multiply by 2. Same thing for the next one. We got to find the radius, and then we got to multiply it by 2 to get the diameter. So total area is 490.9, and that's equal to pi times the radius squared. So we're looking for the radius. First thing we want to do is divide both sides by pi, and this pi is going to cancel, and 490.9 divided by pi equals 156.26-ish. I'm going to round this up to the nearest tenth, so 156.3, okay? So I get 156.3 on this side because I divided by pi equals, this pi went away, r squared. Now I have to take the square root of both sides. Well, to keep it accurate, I never cleared out my calculator, right? So I wrote down, this is the shortened version, the estimated or the rounded version here, but I still have the whole thing in my calculator. So all I'm going to do now to take the square root of that is hit the square root button. Boom. And I get about 12.5, right? If I round to the nearest 10, about 12.5. So here, the radius equals 12.5, so then what would the diameter equal? Double the radius, right? 12.5 plus 12.5 equals 25. And that is in millimeters. Don't forget your units of measure. I didn't put it up here. This is in centimeters. This 14 centimeters, this 25 millimeters for the diameter. Okay, next two, we're looking for the radius, but still we're going to do the exact same thing. We just don't have to multiply by 2 at the end. The area of a circle is 907.9 square inches. Find the radius. So 907.9 equals pi r squared. First thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by pi. So this one goes away, and this 907.9 divided by pi equals about 288.99, so we'll round it to 289. So we'll say 289-ish equals r squared. And then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. In my calculator, I haven't cleared it out, so I'm just going to hit the square root button. And I get about 16.9998. So if I round it to the nearest tenth, I'm going to round this whole thing up to 17. So if I take the square root of both sides, I get positive or negative 17. But I can't have a negative number when I'm measuring something. So it's just about positive 17. And that's in, sorry, inches. I left that out again. It's not in square inches. The area is in square inches. When we're just talking about the radius, that's just length, right? That's just a straight line. So that's one-dimensional. So it's just inches. It's not square inches. Okay, and then the last one, find the radius of a circle with an area of 63.6 square feet. 63.6 equals pi r squared. I got room to show where I divide by pi here. These cancel each other out. 63.6 divided by pi. My light is really dark here. 20.244. So I'm about to say about 20.2. So about 20.2 equals r squared. And then I'm going to take the square root. So on my calculator, I never cleared it out. I'm just going to hit the square root button. And I get 4.499, which I'm going to round to 4.5. 4.5. Radius equals 4.5, and that is in feet. Okay, so make sure each answer is giving you what they asked for, whether it's diameter or radius, and make sure each answer has the units of measure at the end. Even if you forget it like I did, you can go back and add it, just don't leave it off. Okay, if you guys have any questions, let me know and stay tuned for the second video of 11.3.